You weren't born to be what you are right now. You were shaped into it. From the moment you took your first breath, a blueprint was already waiting for you. Not one you chose, but one designed for you. Carefully constructed by culture, media, education, religion, and all the invisible systems that came before you. Before you even had a chance to speak your first words, society had already begun programming your future, how you should think, what you should value, whom you should obey, and what dreams are acceptable.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
This is the journey we never agreed to, but we were all placed on. And if you're watching this, there's a part of you that already knows something's off. You feel it deep down in moments of silence, when the noise fades and you're left with the question, is this really me? That's the moment the blueprint starts to break. That's the moment you begin to see that who you are might not be who you were meant to be, but who you were told to be. Imagine growing up in a room with mirrors that only reflect what others want you to see. You look into them, hoping to find yourself, but all you see is a reflection of expectations. That's what this blueprint is, a hall of mirrors built by someone else. And it's not evil. It's not always intentional, but it is effective. Plato once warned us through the allegory of the cave that most people are comfortable staring at shadows. They mistake the illusion for reality. The blueprint is the cave, and unless you question it, you'll never leave. From the earliest moments of childhood, rewards and punishments were used not to help us understand ourselves, but to condition us. Gold stars, red marks, praise, shame, all tools to mold behavior. Not to make you wise, but to make you compliant. Ask yourself, how many times did you suppress your curiosity because it didn't fit into a lesson plan? How many times did you trade authenticity for approval? That was the blueprint doing its work quietly, invisibly, but deeply. You see, every society needs order. It needs predictability. It needs roles to be filled. And the easiest way to ensure that is to mass produce identities, to create a system where people believe they are choosing when in fact they are selecting from pre-approved options. Like a menu that looks vast, but every item leads to the same outcome, obedience. The philosopher Jean Baudrillard once said, "We live in a world where there is more and more information and less meaning." The blueprint overwhelms you with choices, so you mistake noise for freedom. Let's go deeper. Have you ever wondered why your dreams, your goals, even your desires feel like they were downloaded into you? Like they didn't come from your soul, but from Instagram? School? Your parents? That's not coincidence. That's programming. A system that feeds you pre-packaged ambitions so you never have to confront the terrifying freedom of creating your own. The blueprint doesn't want creators. It wants consumers. It wants you to follow a path so well-trodden that you forget the forest even exists. But what happens when you start asking real questions? Questions like, why do I chase success? Who told me what success is? What if everything I believe about happiness is a lie? That's when the cracks appear. That's when the blueprint starts to glitch. You begin to see that the values you were handed were not designed for your liberation, but for your integration into a machine that feeds on your energy, your time, and your silence. Think about the education system. Ask yourself, were you taught how to think or what to think? Were you trained to explore your inner world or to memorize data for tests? Education, in its current form, is not about awakening. It's about aligning you with the needs of the economy, the expectations of society, and the limits of your own imagination. And the tragedy is, most of us never question it, because questioning is not rewarded. It's punished. Nietzsche said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But what if your why was handed to you by a system that never asked who you are? What if your purpose has always been someone else's plan? Most people live lives of quiet desperation, not because they failed, but because they succeeded at becoming what they were never meant to be. They followed the blueprint perfectly. And now they wonder why they feel empty, even when they have everything they were told to want. The media plays its part too. It doesn't just inform you, it forms you. Every image, every storyline, every algorithmically curated feed is designed to reinforce the blueprint, to make you crave what others have, or to fear being different, to worship relevance. But the deepest truths are never trending. And the people who change the world are often the ones the system ignores, ridicules, or silences first. So how do you break free? How do you burn the blueprint without burning yourself? It begins with awareness, with becoming brutally honest about the fact that much of what you believe was never chosen, it was installed. And once you see that, you can begin the hard, sacred work of uninstalling, of questioning, of sitting in silence long enough to hear your own voice again. But be warned, the system will resist, not with violence, but with seduction. It will offer you comfort, validation, 1,000 distractions. It will tempt you to go back to sleep, to keep scrolling, to keep nodding, because if you wake up, others might too. And that's what the system fears most, not rebellion, but awakening. Not noise, but clarity. Here's the paradox. The moment you begin to break the blueprint, you feel lost, because everything familiar starts to fall away. Your identity, your goals, your beliefs, they begin to dissolve. And in that space, fear creeps in. But that fear is a sign not of danger, but of freedom. You are not dying. You are being reborn. Socrates said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." But the examined life? It's not easy. It demands everything. It demands you confront your shadows, your conditioning, your cowardice. But it also offers something rare: authenticity. The chance to live a life that is yours. So ask yourself, right now, what do I believe that was given to me, not chosen by me? What part of my personality is performance? If I stripped away every external influence, who would I be? These questions are not cute. They're not theoretical. They're dangerous because they lead to truth. And truth, once seen, cannot be unseen. It demands change. It demands courage. It demands that you stop living as a copy and start becoming an original. You were not born with this blueprint, but you have lived by it. And now you have a choice to keep building a life on someone else's foundation, or to tear it down brick by brick and rebuild from the soul outward. Most people won't do it. Most people will stay loyal to the script. But you're not most people. You feel the friction, the disconnect, the hunger for something real. That hunger is your guide. Follow it. It will lead you out of the maze. The blueprint society used to shape you was never meant to set you free. It was meant to make you useful, contained, predictable. But you are not here to fit in. You are here to wake up. And that awakening starts now. As you start to awaken, something strange happens. Everything begins to shift. Not just on the outside, but within. It's like the world you once walked through with certainty now feels unreal, hollow, and scripted. You look around and begin to see the architecture of control hidden in plain sight. Every billboard, every headline, every voice telling you who you should be starts to sound the same. And when you realize that sameness isn't coincidence but design, you understand how deep the blueprint goes. You were never meant to question it. That was the first rule. The blueprint isn't enforced through force, it's enforced through narrative. It tells you what a good life looks like, what success should mean, what kind of person is respectable. It doesn't need to chain you. It just needs to convince you that your cage is a castle. And so you decorate it. You chase goals that aren't yours, and you call it ambition. You follow fashions that don't reflect you, and you call it identity. But real identity doesn't come from outside. It emerges from within. And this is exactly what the blueprint hides from you. It teaches you to define yourself by roles: student, worker, citizen, parent. These roles become masks, and eventually they harden into who you think you are. But remove the role, and who remains? Can you exist without a label? Can you be whole without validation? That's the territory society never wants you to explore, because that's where true power lives. Let's talk about one of the most powerful tools used to shape you: comparison. From the time you were a child, you were measured against others. Grades, looks, skills, popularity. Everything was a ranking system. And what does that do to a human soul? It teaches you that your value is always determined relative to others. Not by your uniqueness, not by your essence, but by how well you match an external standard. That's not education. That's indoctrination. This is why social media became the perfect weapon. It took the blueprint and turned it into a loop. Now you're not just conditioned by school or family, you're conditioned by the algorithm. You're shown what you should want, how you should look, how you should speak. And if you deviate, you're punished with invisibility. The likes disappear. The attention fades. And so you return to the script, once again trading your truth for approval. But the truth is, no one can truly validate you. No one can give you the inner permission to be who you are. That must come from within. External validation is a drug. It gives you a quick high, but it leaves you emptier every time. And the more you chase it, the more you abandon yourself. So ask yourself, who would I be if I stopped trying to impress the world? What would I do if I wasn't afraid of being unseen? The blueprint you inherited was never about freedom. It was about function. You were shaped to serve a system, not to transcend it. And the moment you realize this, you begin to see that most of what you've suffered wasn't accidental, it was structural. Your anxiety, your self-doubt, your confusion, they're not personal flaws. They're symptoms of a soul trying to break out of a system that never made room for it. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But do we even know what that means anymore? Most people spend their lives becoming what others expect of them. They become polished versions of a false self, never knowing there was something deeper waiting to be discovered. And by the time they realize it, it's often too late. They've built entire lives around the blueprint: careers, relationships, reputations. To question it would mean tearing it all down. And that's terrifying. But what if that fear is the doorway? What if the breakdown is not the end, but the beginning? You see, all transformation begins with destruction. The blueprint must collapse for the authentic self to emerge. And yes, it's painful. You will grieve the version of you that was built by others. You will feel lost. But in that loss, you find something sacred: your real life. Let's talk about fear. It's the cornerstone of the blueprint. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of being different. These fears are not natural, they're taught. You weren't born afraid of being judged. You were taught to fear it because the system depends on conformity. The moment you stop fearing judgment, you become unstoppable. Because now you're no longer living to be accepted. You're living to be true. That's when everything changes. Your decisions become aligned with your inner compass, not with external pressure. You start saying no to things that don't resonate, even if they're popular. You start walking away from relationships, jobs, and environments that keep you small. And people may not understand. They may say you've changed. But the truth is, you're finally becoming real. The Stoics taught us that freedom is not found in external conditions, but in inner clarity. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And how can you master yourself if you don't even know who you are beneath the programming? That's why this work is urgent. Because every day you live by a false blueprint, you drift further from your essence. You lose time, you lose joy, you lose yourself. So how do you begin this process? You start by noticing. Notice when you're acting from fear instead of truth. Notice when you're choosing what's expected over what's right for you. Notice when your thoughts echo society instead of your own soul. Awareness is the first step. Once you see the blueprint, you can't unsee it. And that sight gives you the power to choose. But choice requires courage. Because the moment you choose authenticity, you will feel alone. You will walk through a desert of uncertainty. The old world will reject you, and the new one won't exist yet. That's the price of becoming real. But on the other side of that desert is a life that no one can give you and no one can take away. A life that is yours. You'll begin to realize that most of the suffering in your life came not from who you are, but from who you were pretending to be. The pressure to perform, the anxiety to fit in, the exhaustion of constantly managing your image. None of that is part of your essence. It's the cost of the blueprint. And once you stop paying it, you begin to heal. Healing is not about fixing what's broken. It's about remembering what was never broken in the first place. You were always enough. You were always worthy. You were just made to forget. The blueprint was never designed for your wholeness, it was designed for your utility. But you are not a tool. You are not a product. You are a consciousness, a soul, a mystery unfolding. And if you can remember that, if you can hold on to that truth, even as the world tries to shape you, you will become something rare. Not just a thinker, not just a rebel, but a creator, a force, a being who lives from the inside out. And that kind of being cannot be controlled. Now that you've begun to see the blueprint, to recognize how deeply it has shaped you, the real challenge begins. It's not just about awareness, it's about transformation. Because awareness without action is still submission. It's like waking up in a prison and choosing to stay in the cell because it's familiar. If you've made it this far, you already feel the pull, the desire to live a life that is not scripted, not expected, but authentically yours. And yet there will be moments when you wonder, can I really walk away from everything I've been taught to be? The answer is yes, but it comes with a cost. The cost is your old self. The cost is the version of you that was acceptable to everyone else. And that's why most people never change, not because they can't, but because they're afraid of losing who they think they are. Kierkegaard said, "The most common form of despair is not being who you are." And that's exactly where the blueprint traps you, not in pain, but in comfort, in roles you've outgrown, in dreams that were never yours, in a life that looks good on the outside but feels empty within. There is a moment in every awakening journey when you must decide, will I keep betraying myself to belong? Or will I risk everything to be free? That decision is not made once. It's made every day, in conversations where you want to be liked, but know you must be honest. In jobs that pay well but cost your soul. In relationships where the version of you they love is not the real you. Each moment is a fork in the road. And every time you choose truth over comfort, you reclaim a piece of yourself. But don't romanticize this path. It's not easy. It's not glamorous. You will face resistance from the world, from others, and most powerfully, from within. Your ego will scream. Your fears will rise. Your old identity will try to pull you back into the known. That's not weakness. That's the blueprint fighting for survival. It's the system's last trick, to make you believe that freedom is dangerous and safety is found in sameness. But comfort is not peace. Numbness is not joy. And silence is not truth. You must become your own guide now. No one can do this for you. No mentor, no book, no video can replace the inner work that's required. You have to sit with yourself. Face the parts of you that you've ignored. The shame, the grief, the anger, the longing. You must ask the questions most people run from. What have I denied in myself to be accepted? What truths have I buried to survive? What would I do if I wasn't afraid of being alone with who I really am? These questions are not just spiritual, they're psychological liberation. They tear down the scaffolding of your false self and leave space for something real to emerge. And when it does, it won't be loud. It won't need to prove anything. It will simply be. And from that being, a new life will begin to take shape, one that's not built from external approval, but from internal clarity. And that's when something beautiful starts to happen. You begin to attract different experiences, deeper relationships, opportunities that align with your truth. Not because you're manifesting them like magic, but because you're no longer filtering your reality through the lens of who you're supposed to be. You're living from your essence, and essence is magnetic. But even then, the blueprint doesn't fully disappear. It lingers in your habits, in your fears, in your quiet doubts. Liberation is not a one-time event. It's a lifetime practice. You will still feel the pull to conform, to be liked, to water yourself down. But each time you choose to honor your truth instead, you weaken the spell. You become more whole, more clear, more you. And the world needs that version of you. Not the polished image, not the edited brand, but the raw, real, fully alive you. Because every time one person breaks the blueprint, it creates a ripple. It gives others permission to do the same, not through words, but through example. That's how culture changes. Not through revolutions, but through inner revolutions. One awakened mind at a time. Gandhi said, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." But that change starts inside you, not by preaching, not by pointing fingers, but by living differently, by becoming a living contradiction to the blueprint society used to shape you, by showing that it's possible to be successful and soulful, grounded and free, real and radiant. So what does that look like in practice? It looks like creating space in your life for silence, for reflection, for truth. It looks like questioning your routines, your goals, your attachments. It looks like saying no to what drains you, even if it's familiar. It looks like giving yourself permission to evolve, even if others don't understand. You may lose people. You may walk away from environments that once defined you. You may feel alone, but that loneliness is sacred. It's not a punishment, it's a passage. A space where the old self dies and the new self begins to breathe. And in that breath, you find your true voice, not the one shaped by the world, but the one that was waiting, buried beneath the noise all along. You're not here to be perfect. You're not here to meet anyone's expectations. You're here to remember, to decondition, to return to the truth of who you are. And that truth is not a brand. It's not a role. It's not a performance. It's a presence, a consciousness, a wild, untamed force that cannot be molded by institutions or algorithms. That's why the system fears authenticity, because it cannot control it, it cannot predict it, and it cannot profit from it. Authenticity is the ultimate rebellion. It's the refusal to be shaped by anything but your own inner knowing. And that kind of rebellion is the only one that truly changes the world.